Okay, today we're going to try to turn this sculpture into a sculpture that fits in better with the desert environment. So we're going to paint it more earth tone colors because the colors right now are just the base, the black base colors. And that's good for the base and give it depth, the preliminary depth color. But we're going to give it some base. Here's what you're going to need: some paintbrush, some water, clean up water, and a glove. You're going to need a glove. We're going to do some sponge painting, and we're also going to do some flicking on painting like Jackson Pollock did. But first, don't be afraid to experiment. Here we're going to experiment with a little technique using a Asian metal artwork, and we're going to just flick some, push some paint through there and see how it turned out. It didn't turn out that great. I think this type of technique works better with spray paint. But again, don't be afraid to experiment when you're painting. As you can see, it didn't turn out that good, but this is just a little experiment. So today what we're going to be doing is sponge painting, and we're going to flick on the paint like Jackson Pollock. Now, it's better to have a natural sponge. I could not find a natural sponge, so I'm forced to use this thing. And it's definitely the job will not be as good using this type of sponge. But I'm working with what I got. Always, it's nice to have a glove too when you're sponge painting. The darker colors, as you notice the black lines on the back, that's the first thing you should do. The darker color should be on first, the first base color when you're doing abstract type painting. So basically all we're doing right now is dipping the sponge in the paint and just going at it. This is as I told you before, what the goal here is. The goal is to turn this is an outdoor cement sculpture, and the goal is to make it fit in better with the environment. An earth tone color. We're going with brown, some light brown and some darker brown. And it's really nice when you have a black base to work with. That's good if you can do the black and gray base first, because then some of the black will show through later, give it depth, and give it I think it'd be more attractive looking. So here we are. We're just using the sponge and sponging it on. You don't have to be a Picasso to do this type of technique. You can do this. So we're going through the steps. This is going to be a long video, I understand, but it does take steps. You have to layer the paint on. I mean, you have the first step, the second step, the third step, and the first step, was putting the black and gray paint on. Think of it like a primer. And then this is like a third step, sponging the light brown color on. Think of that as like a third step. And of course, the fourth step will be flicking the paint on like Jackson Pollock did. Everybody knows who Jackson Pollock was. And if you don't, do a little search on Jackson Pollock. He was an amazing painter. He would put the canvas on the ground and flick the paint on, something like this. But his canvas would be on the ground. With a sculpture like this, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. But okay, on the balls of the sculpture, we're going to have a darker brown color layer, base color. So since we do not have a base color on the balls, or you can call them the universe worlds, we call them whatever you want to, we're going to have to put a darker brown base color on those, and then later on we'll come back and sponge on some lighter brown. But here's your Jackson Pollock style of flicking the paint on. It's really harder than it looks. I mean, it looks childlike, looks like it's child play, but actually flicking it and getting the paint to go where you want it to go and to have some sort of a nice appearance, believe me, it's not as easy as it looks. You'll have to practice with that a little bit. So here we are flicking the paint on after we've already sponged on the lighter We sponged on the lighter tannish color, and now we flicked on some paint Jackson Pollock style. And what we want to do, we've already painted a base coat on the spears. The spears which represent the worlds of the universe. And every sculpture should have meaning. If when an artist puts a piece of sculpture together, he usually has some sort of idea behind what he's thinking about. And of course, this sculpture is called the Tree of Worlds. The Tree of Worlds, and it's a little universe of 6 worlds. And the tree is the universe, holding all the worlds together. And here we go. We're going to sponge on a little bit of paint. Now, we already got the base coat on the spears, remember? The world spears. Now we're going to take the sponge and sponge on to the spears to tone down the darker brown color, because the darker reddish brown color is too much by itself. So that's why it's good to have the darker colors as a base, and then sometimes you sponge on the lighter colors, and then you can go back and flick on a darker color like in the Jackson Pollock style. So I think it turned out okay. It definitely looks better than it did. Is it a Jackson Pollock masterpiece? Well, no it ain't, but it's good enough for me. I think it blends in with the desert landscaping. And the Tree of Worlds has now been updated with a new color. And I hope I was able to give you some sort of pointers and mainly just the confidence to go out there and do it yourself, because that's what this is. This is a video, do-it-yourself video, telling you that you can do it. You don't have to hire anybody to do it. You can do it yourself. And here we are, flicking the paint on again like Jackson Pollock style. This is really, after you get the hang of it, this is a fun way of painting. You might want to try this. Just experiment with it. And not every canvas is going to turn out perfect for you, so you have to experiment. And could we add more colors to this? Sure we could. If this was a painting, if this was a canvas on the ground, we could flip on some other colors, some more lively colors. But again, the goal here was to make it fit in with the brownish desert environment, which I think we were successful.